one cared who I was until I turned off the camera.
That's an excellent opening line with zero context. But yes, we're talking about the episode of Torchwood, Ghost Machine. Okay, we meant to talk about this like a week and a half ago, but life and sickness kept getting in the way.
David Tennant at Rose City Comic Con, which was amazing.
Also, that's very important. I haven't rewatched the episode since then, so I'm just gonna mostly be going off my notes. Lucy actually watched the episode just today, so she's the freshest.
My thoughts about it. I'm going to be honest. I had trouble concentrating on this episode for some reason. It really bored me. Can someone explain to me how the machine works?
When you step on a spot where something very emotional happened in the past, you press the button and you re-experience that moment in the past. You're experiencing a ghost apparition, i.e. Ghost Machine.
Also, just to mention, I was doing some work at the same time while watching this, so...
And no, Owen, that does not mean Gwen is senile.
It's basically just a way to re-experience other people's trauma, pretty much.
Okay, but I'm just trying to figure out what was the point of it. I mean, I guess for their planet, it could work. I don't know. Like I said, it was just boring me while I was working, and I was having trouble concentrating on it.
Well, the writer in me just wants to say the point of it is so that we can have the emotional moments of this episode.
And I'm just gonna try to make Owen likable and fail miserably.
I get the sense that we're gonna disagree slightly on this episode, and I guess I'll start with I don't think the episode's intent was to make Owen likable so much as it was to make him more sympathetic. And those might sound like the same thing, but I think there
not
is
as much as combat, but we'll get to combat when we get to it. Combat is the reason why you don't let your actors write Doctor Who episodes.
Okay.
Nah, I'll take your word for that until we get there.
I understand why the Ninth Doctor gives Mickey so much shit.
Yeah, just as far as making Owen specifically more sympathetic, I think the episode worked, and part of that is just Bern Gorman's performance. I was not going into this episode expecting much from it, and the first couple of minutes with like the chase sequence with the really overdone camera work and the music,
pretty generic. You would see on any crime procedural.
Yeah, they go way overboard with it. Like, can you tell we were made in the early 2000s?
Technically, it's the mid 2000s.
So I will say it does lead to kind of an effective shift, which is that scene happens and it's all really overdone, and then Gwen presses the button and immediately everything in the scene becomes really moody. And then we're into the real tone of the episode. So I'm glad that those first couple of minutes aren't really reflective of the rest of the episode. And I feel like maybe they just did that so that when she presses the button and things like shift tonally, it's like it hits you more. Oh, isn't it so radical? It's a chase sequence. It's so freaking cool.
Also have it end with Gwen saying a line that would make Peter Griffin go, she said it.
It kind of goes from like, big action-packed scene to just quiet and kind of creepy and eerie. I kind of like that aspect of it.
Into becoming a pretty good episode is when we get to Owen and he presses the thing and he sees this guy Ed Morgan like impress himself on and then rape and murder this young girl. Full disclosure, of all the episodes of Torchwood, this is the one that I've already seen the most. Mm-hmm. So I've seen this episode a couple of times, like years ago. Like, I could see missing out on the fact that as Owen is watching this happen, he is also feeling all of it. So he feels himself get raped and murdered, and so that really comes through in the performance and the dialogue. And like, I could see someone watching this episode and like Owen gets really obsessed with like stopping Ed Morgan,
at least making him answer for what he got away with.
The stuff with Owen, it was, for once he felt kind of human or cool with Owen in this. It's like, okay, you can relate to this because he went through that experience of seeing that, and he actually wants to get revenge on, well, not so much revenge, but wants this guy to pay for what he did because it's really gross.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, revenge isn't a bad word, Lucy, because like I said, he doesn't just see it happen. He feels it as though it happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
So he is kind of getting revenge. There's sort of like two major through lines in this episode. It's Owen and Ed Morgan, and it's Gwen. I don't know. We can get into Gwen's sort of arc in this episode, but she's kind of going through a thing. And there's Bernie Harris, but he's more to the side, and he really factors into Owen's whole arc. So I don't know. I feel like Owen and to more or less of an extent Gwen are the focus of this episode. I feel like that's really well done.
I like the Owen stuff. I think where it lost me was the Glenn stuff. I just could not keep interest in it for whatever reason. My mind started wandering. I don't know why. I guess because I just don't like her relationship with Reese.
The writing for Gwen and Reese's relationship, it very much depends on who's writing it and which season we're in, up and down in quality.
Yeah. Like the last season, they're in a pretty good place. This season, they're just kind of like all over the place and stuff. I mean, they have this montage of her like having these good memories with him and stuff.
Know it instead of just saying, "Oh, I have a great relationship with this guy."
Okay, see, I'm gonna disagree with you guys there as well. Like, I don't think it's the best relationship as of yet, but that scene that you two are talking about, I found it to be really heartwarming and kind of charming.
And I'm not saying it's bad. It's just that it's nice to actually show they have a nice relationship instead of just constantly telling us.
I think that's the problem. It's like, okay, we see a flashback of them being really good together, but they're kind of having a dysfunctional relationship.
I guess that'll become more clear to me.
Gets there.
Oh yeah, it will become more clear.
Yeah, it becomes more clear as it goes on. Right now, it's like not that bad, but as it gets on, there's this like moments where Reese is especially just kind of emotionally abuses her, and she cheats on him, and it's really dysfunctional.
That's really unfortunate.
Get better as the seasons go on. I will say that at least. So
Things to get a reference in Torchwood. Secret Scroll was not one of them. But yeah, another reason I like that scene is because like it makes the whole thing, I think, a little bit more complex because it had so easy to have the moral of this episode, or to be like the kind of outlook of this episode be, this machine is dangerous and bad and evil, and look at how terrible our job is and all this alien crap. But there is a positive side to this machine. It's a gray area. It's not just some destructive force that's there for trauma. Like, it will let you experience things that are positive, and that's interesting.
It's arguably the most adult Torchwood has been so far, whereas with most of the previous two episodes, it's been like gimmicky adult, like the way a teenager sees being an adult is like.
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I feel like this is the first episode we've tackled so far that was just like, someone had a really cool idea for a sci-fi thing, and they were like, this is too adult for Doctor Who, but let's do it on this other show, and let's treat it with some real gravitas and matter with respect. I mentioned last time where the focus of the episode, the subject matter was about sex, and I felt like for the reputation that this show has, it was remarkably sure about not being childish in the discussions of sex. It's easy to have it be like off color or kind of immature or out of place the way it handles the issue of rape, but it's really nothing but tactful and respectful about it. If that experience happened to any character other than Owen, you know, Owen would be the character like not taking it seriously, or it was a smart move to make him the one that experiences that.
Mm-hmm.
Which props to writer Helen Rayner, who wrote on Doctor Who the Daleks in Manhattan two-parter and the Sontaran two-parter, which that is such a staggeringly leap in range of quality.
Yeah.
Let's focus on Ghost Machine, because Ghost Machine is a decent episode, damn it.
Yeah, I really like it. I mentioned Bernie Harris earlier. He's a character who didn't leave much of an impression on me the previous times I watched this episode, but watching it now, it's like he's, again, like most of this episode, he's not the best guy. Owes debts to everyone in the neighborhood. No one likes him. And he thinks he's going to die, like, soon. He really sells like he's just kind of this sad, put-upon kid who's terrified that he's about to die.
About, I guess, the rapist.
Ed Morgan.
But Ed Morgan, it's just like the scene where it happens, and whoever's playing like young Edward Morgan, legitimately terrifying. Like, that is a performance that walks the line between like, it could be kind of silly silly with like the voice he's putting on and stuff.
Mhm.
But for me in this viewing, like watching that scene, I was scared of that guy. That's uncomfortable.
This guy seems like the real deal, and that's terrifying.
To make sure he's not like on any sex offenders list.
I mean, he's certainly a lot more intimidating than Oswald Danes on Miracle Day ever was.
Now I feel bad for not looking up the name of this actor because really good. Christopher Elson is young Ed Morgan. He's really good.
I guess we should talk about the last scene.
Okay, the emotionally heavy ending that is a bit of a mixed bag.
I think it works as an ending to this story. I don't really have any strong thoughts on it.
What for me was the pacing. It has that issue I have of a lot of 45-minute Doctor Who episodes where not enough time, so they rush the end or completely stamp on the potential of the premise of Whimper. And in this case was a bit of a rushed ending. Like, we have these multiple plots we have to wrap up at once, so why don't we just shoot it all in one go?
Well, my only thoughts about the ending was it just didn't really work for me. We tried to stop the death from happening, but we failed. And it just seemed kind of forced to me. It's like, oh, I'm going to throw myself on the knife.
As an audience member, I was just like yelling, Gwen, put the knife away, put the knife away, put the knife away. I was doing that on my first ever viewing of it way back when.
Yeah, because I feel like it's maybe a little bit too far to say that the ending as a whole feels rushed. Everything up to Owen having the knife and deciding not to use it, and Bernie not dying, that all feels good. It's when Ed decides to run into the knife that a bit rushed and forced. But the reason I say that maybe the Ed Morgan thing feels a bit forced and rushed is that looking back on my viewing of the episode and like looking at his scenes with Owen and like the scenes of him sort of by himself being all paranoid in his house, I get the feeling without it ever being spoken that he knows what he did was wrong and wants to die over it. The episode, though, you could argue could do more to make that clear. Because if it's clear enough to you that, like, this is a guy who's just tormented by what he did, clearly he's not all right in the head, and he runs into Gwen's knife, then I don't think it feels as rushed. But if you're not picking up on that, and it doesn't ever occur to you that maybe this is someone who's already trying to kill themselves, then that feels really, really forced.
I agree.
Forced is just like, oh, I have to die. It's like, really?
It didn't feel that way for me on this viewing. I got that kind of vibe from him. The next time I watch it, that may change, who knows. But overall, I feel like this was a pretty good episode.
It's alright. It didn't really interest me so much. Like I said, it's just kind of meh.
It's an average episode, but it's a good average episode as opposed to just being boring.
The thing that stood out to me is like and Gwen at the shooting gallery.
Cut that scene out entirely and nothing else would change. In fact, it feels like something that they wrote for day one, but they didn't have enough time in the shooting schedule, so they moved it to the next episode.
It was a little sexual.
I mean, it's John Barrowman playing Captain Jack. Of course it's gonna be.
Yeah, it's Jack. What else is it gonna be? I can't remember if I wouldn't get rid of that scene entirely. I just think it's way too long. Like, we spend like upwards of a minute of her just shooting targets. It's like, we don't need that much time on that. But is that the scene where Jack doesn't sleep ever? Because that's another thing. Like, I like that just episodes in, we're just slowly being drip fed information about Jack.
Don't expect that detail to stick.
Coming to this show from Doctor Who and you're not really familiar with what Jack's deal is, every episode we'll just get a little detail as to like, Jack is a bit weird, like even beyond just not being able to die.
6.5 out of 10. It's a decent average episode, but it could have been a lot better, but it also could have been a hell of a lot worse.
I don't do numbers, but like of the 3 episodes that we've watched, this is the first one where I'm like, you know what, I may just come back and watch this episode again just because I feel like it. So that's a point in its favor.
We're getting better, I guess, at this show, so that's good.
Now let's just hope that nothing screws it up.
It's a very special week when the Torchwood episode that we're talking about is better than the Doctor Who episodes we are going to talk about.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And they're both written by the same person.
Okay, yeah, let's call it on this one.